Hey everybody, it's Chainsaw Reacts. Yesterday I had the great opportunity to speak with the voice of Pinky, Yakko Warner, Carl Wheezer, Raphael, and many, many more, Rob Paulsen. It was great talking to him for over 27 minutes. I easily could have kept him for over an hour, but I wasn't going to do that to him. But there was just so many things I wanted to ask, and he was really gracious with his answers. And he does do some voices in the video. I didn't ask him, but he graciously did some voices just on the fly, and it was so awesome. You'll see my face brighten up when he does them. It was just so great. I hope you guys enjoyed this interview, and yeah, this is honestly just so amazing. I can't wait for you guys to check it out. So here you go. Thank you for speaking with me today, Rob. I really appreciate it. It's been a crazy hectic try to get this all scheduled out, but I'm glad we could do this.
Me too, pal. Thank you very much for your patience.
Of course, of course. I was actually watching earlier today. I rewatched it because I saw it years ago. Was the documentary "I Know That Voice"?
Oh yeah,
John DiMaggio's thing. Yeah, and I was wondering how it felt to be a part of something like that that really highlighted and really talked about all the behind the scenes stuff of doing what you do, because I think for the longest time people weren't really aware of what goes into being a voice actor and how, how much work goes into it.
Yeah. Well, it's always a pleasure to be involved with something with that group of people. The fact that John DiMaggio went on his own and did his own, financed his own movie, and included all of us, it was a fantastic experience. And it's continued to pay really lovely dividends down the road, just with people like you asking questions about it. It's great.
It really was a fun film to watch, but also very informative, because the misconception, the idea of you just go into a booth and you just produce a voice. Right. And there's a lot more to that. And the whole discussion about it's about embodying the character and not so much about can you read what has been said or can you mimic what's already been said by the character? Can you create something new? Is that something important for you in terms of when you create a character that you try your best to cover all the different aspects of that character emotion wise and all that?
Yeah. I mean, it's a typical acting job. It's just limited to your voice, but acting is acting. So when you're able to, pardon me, understand how your character relates to other characters in the piece, it just fleshes out the whole thing and makes it better. But again, the people that I'm surrounded by, as a matter of course, the John DiMaggios, the Maurice LaMarches, Tress MacNeille, Nancy Cartwright, Jess Harnell, Tress MacNeille, I think I said Tress. They're all so good, and it just makes me better to be surrounded by them.
I think the Animaniacs, as you're referencing those actors, the Animaniacs, the Pinky and the Brain, that really was, I think, a crazy time to live in with like this crazy wacky show, and then it comes back.
Yeah, how about that?
Yeah, me and my wife are sitting there watching the new episodes like, holy crap. Like, and I told her, like, they got everybody back, the original voice actors, and it felt like you guys never left. It felt like it was just...
Well, thank you. That was the idea. I'm so glad it hit you that way. We were... of course, incredibly thrilled to get a chance to do it again. And the fact that Mr. Spielberg made it clear that we were to be involved was an enormous gift. And the fact that you and your wife feel that it, just like picked up where we left off is exactly what we were after. So thank you.
Of course. It was really interesting to see these characters again, but newer references, like stuff that before was not a thing, and now it's like, oh, okay, they can update it, but it feels like the same show.
Cool.
A couple years ago, I discovered something you've been a part of from time to time called Twisted Toonz. Oh, I love Twisted Toonz.
Thank you.
And what I love so much about it is the camaraderie, the ad-libbing, the having fun with the script. How did you get, did they just ask you at some point to be a part of it? Because you've done quite a few of those.
Yeah, well, our friend Jeff Zanini, who actually is the fellow who books me at conventions around the world, came up with the idea and started producing these events live at different conventions that we would all attend. And generally speaking, there are half a dozen of us that might be involved: Jim Cummings, myself, Ross Marquand, Phil Lamar, sometimes Billy, It just depends on who's Nolan North and who happens to be in the crew at that particular time. But they're so much fun to do, and the audience really responds to them. So, yeah, man, he came up with a great idea.
Is it really like on the spot where like he throws out a voice you're gonna do for that script and you're not told ahead of time? You're just like,
Yes,
okay.
yes, that's exactly it. He goes down and he casts it in advance, and then at the beginning of every scene, he'll say, "Okay, Rob, we're going to have Carl Wheezer play Marty McFly. We're going to have Maurice the Brain will be Marty's mother."
Mm-hmm.
It's great. Or Jess Harnell, and he'll say, "We're going to have Arnold Schwarzenegger be Doc Brown,"
Yeah.
and it just is an absolute gas.
That's one of my favorite back and forths is whenever he would pair up Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jess Harnell, and then you're Carl Wheezer, and at points you're like, this is getting uncomfortable, but it's the back and forth. It's so funny. Do you like ad-libbing? Do you get to ad-lib a lot in studio, or is it mostly when you can do stuff like that where it's free to just do what you want?
I love to ad-lib. And in the studio, there are, we obviously go right by the script for several takes, but then there's always an option to go ahead and play and try new stuff. And the producers are very keen to let those of us who do this gig ad-lib and try some stuff. And then now it doesn't mean it'll end up in the final product, but they're very interested in tapping that resource because they have all these people who are very good at it right at their fingertips. So they always encourage us to at least give it a shot.
Is there any ad-libs with you and Maurice with Pinky and the Brain? Because I felt like that duo, there's a lot of potential for like in the moment stuff that
Sure.
Yeah. I love you guys' relationship because you guys really have a bond. Because I think you've worked for so long together playing those characters.
We really are very close in real life. We have absolute trust and admiration for one another, and Maurice is like a brother, and frankly the same with Tress. I've known Tress over 40 years, and she's the in my view the preeminent voice actress in the history of the medium. She's quite remarkable, and all these people are we know each other, we trust each other, and we just so look forward to seeing it. Kevin Michael Richardson, I mentioned Nolan North, Seth Green, Sean Astin. Greg Sipes, all just great friends.
So it feels like the voiceover community is very connected in many different ways. Is that true to where you know a lot of people based off of your connection to all your work?
Yes. Generally the same, not the same, but a core group of people do a lot of the work over my career. And so I've gotten to know them and become friends with virtually all of them. Tom Kenny, who's SpongeBob, Bob Bergen, I spoke to yesterday. Bob Bergen is Porky Pig, and Eric Bauza, and I mentioned Billy West. We're all Jen Hale. We're all very good friends, and we've gotten to know each other for over the last 25, 30 years.
Yeah, I was looking at your credits, and you've done so much. IMDb says you've been credited over 500 times.
Yeah.
And that's like, does it feel like that, or does it just feel like this is just the job? This is what I do.
They all kind of sort of blend into one another, and it's kind of a benchmark that allows me to go and say, wow, I have been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
I could not be more grateful. It's just a remarkable way to make a living. The people are great. The fans are great. They're exceptional. When I get to go do live appearances, literally around the world, and I meet people for whom these characters mean so much more than just an action figure. It is never not incredibly humbling, and I can't get enough of it. I just love to meet the folks.
I mean, because for a lot of people, when they're growing up, when they see these characters on screen, they feel like these are my friends. Like these are people. Yeah. And they feel like real people. They feel like this is an actual person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they find out that these characters help them through difficult times, and are kind of, as you said, they're friends that are always there. And now they share them with their own children, sometimes their grandchildren. I meet many folks who are in their 40s, mid 40s, and love Ninja Turtles. They grew up watching Ninja Turtles, and now their kids love Turtles or Animaniacs or The Mask or The Tick, or it's really cool.
It's crazy how it's generation to generation, because a lot of these shows back then are timeless, and they're continuing to still get attention. I was curious about this because my wife, when she found out I'm interviewing Pinky, she's like, I got to know, who is your favorite character to voice? I have a theory. She thinks it's Pinky. I think it's Yakko, but we could be wrong. Who's your favorite person?
In answer to your question, yes. It's difficult to pick one, but I think that if I had to choose, it would be probably a toss-up between Yakko and Pinky, because Yakko, I get to sing all the time, and I love singing. Mm-hmm. And Animaniacs lends itself to allowing me to do that. And Pinky, I just really slide right into him. I really just love that little fellow. And I get to work with my friend the Brain. Well, it's great.
That narf, that's just like an added, like, when did you discover the narf to throw in? Because it's kind of random.
Well, it is kind of random, but it was scripted, actually. Initially, when we started doing that show, the writers started throwing in little quirky noises that Pinky would make. Mm-hmm. And narf, point, egad, zounds, egad, Brain, that is absolutely astounding. Point, and zort. And it was just kind of this little Tourette's-like thing, and it sort of found a life of its own. And so now when people want to hear Pinky, they absolutely have to hear narf.
I mean, whenever he calls, when you're on Twisted Toonz, like, okay, it's time for Pinky, and you go narf sometimes, and like people like freak out, like
they freak out.
Oh, yeah. When it comes to Yakko, because you mentioned singing, so you love to sing.
I love it.
Okay. Do you like try to go for roles that get you to the point where you can sing as that character? Is it hard to sing with doing a voice? Is it hard to sing?
It depends on the character, Jordan. It's certain voice placements. Yakko is kind of back here in my throat, sort of like helium. Mm-hmm. And I have no problem singing United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru, Republic Dominican, Cuba, Caribbean, Greenland, El Salvador too. But there are other voice placements, depending upon where it sort of hits you in your throat, that it might limit your range, might limit my range a little bit. But I've sung in so many different characters, and even sung badly. When Carl Wheezer shows up, he's not a particularly good singer, but it works perfectly with the character, so screw it, I don't care.
That's so good. I was going to ask about Carl, because obviously at the time I didn't know it was you voicing him, but I've always found he has such a unique voice, at least in terms of a high-pitched voice. You think of a little boy, it's a unique take. When you went into audition, did you go audition for Carl? Or did you go audition for, okay. And was there other options or other ideas you had that maybe didn't work, or maybe the voice just evolved?
Yes, the voice evolved. I honestly don't recall what other takes I did, because it was quite a while ago. Mm-hmm. But I remember coming up with Carl because there was a character I did years ago in a show called Goof Troop for Disney that was sort of like this. He was a kind of he was Max's best friend. Oh, yeah. And his name is PJ. So I took PJ and just made him a little bit higher with a lazy L and this kind of crackly voice, and ripped off PJ to come up with Carl.
That's crazy how you did that, because literally when you started talking as PJ, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that voice.
Yeah, you totally remember him, right?
I was like, I read it as I was scrolling through IMDb, like, what all he's done? I'm like, PJ, like that sounds familiar. And then you did it. I'm like, wow. Cool. I also noticed too, you voiced Hydro Man on Spiderman in the 90s.
I think I did. Maybe that was the only episode I did in that iteration of Spider-Man. I was also on a newer version of Spider-Man in which I played a character called Batroc the Leaper. That was a later version.
Yeah.
But yeah, I played Hydro Man, and apparently people really dig that character. I've had a number of people over the years come up and bring Hydro Man action figures for me to sign.
And it's like, oh, okay. That's because it's something like you take the job at the time. You don't know what it's going to do. You don't know if it's going to respond because
Right.
you never know with these things.
Oh, totally.
That's really cool because I remember specifically the Hydro Man episode. I
Oh,
remember.
you do. Thank you.
It was an emotional episode, and it's like, oh, okay, there's some backstory to this character. He's not just like I'm evil.
Yeah, it was pretty intense.
Yeah. When you go to conventions, because for a while we didn't have conventions.
Yeah.
We had like, was that weird? Did you did it affect your work, or were you able to record at home, or?
I was able to record at home. It affected my work to the extent that I much prefer to be in the studio with the other actors.
Mm-hmm.
But I was very lucky that we were still able to work from home, and we were still working on Animaniacs and Pinky the Brain at the time, the new ones. Mm-hmm. So I was able to complete those. That was a huge gift. But now that conventions are back, it's just really great being there. I'm going to, let's see, a week from today, I'm going to Huntsville, Alabama. Then 2 weeks from today, I go to Cleveland. And I got a couple more in May, a couple in June, a few in July, a couple in August. So I'm traveling a lot. I just got back a few weeks ago from Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Dublin.
Wow.
We're cartoon fans everywhere, man. So it's pretty cool.
That sounds like it's pretty planned out in advance.
We get booked often months in advance, and try to make sure that we can schedule it so that we can all show up. And the events try to get as many voice actors together so that often we can do these Twisted Toonz things.
I mean, that's really fun for the audience, and I like the whole thing at the beginning where he's like PG-13 and rated R. In case
That's right.
I mean, I feel bad because like there's probably kids and they're going like, oh, I get to see these voice actors. Like, well, it's supposed to be because a lot of people now, a lot of people now, it's like they're teenagers, they're adults now, so it's a different audience. When you're at conventions, people come up. What is the number one character they bring up? Who's the number one? Do you think most?
Probably, I would say it's probably a toss-up between, again, Pinky and Yakko and Turtles. Everybody loves Ninja Turtles. That's huge. When the original four Turtles are together, Townsend Coleman, Cam Clark, Barry Gordon, and myself, that is really fun because it's rare for us all to be together. And, we worked on that show 30 years ago and people still freak out over Ninja Turtles.
I mean, it's resonated with so many people.
Yeah. And it's just huge. And has brought so much joy to so many people. So Turtles is right up there. I get a lot of all of that stuff.
How did it feel to go back to Turtles playing another turtle? Because
oh my God, it was spectacular. And that version of the show is excellent. It turned out really well. Ciro Nieli, the producer of the show, had a great vision for what his ideas were about with respect to the turtle ethos. And I think it turned out beautifully. It was a completely new animation style. The Turtles obviously still had the whole brother thing and the hijinks that ensue with that, but it was pretty intense. There were a number of episodes that were certainly not necessarily geared around little kids. It was shows that 30 and 40-year-olds could watch and really enjoy it and get involved in the drama.
And that's awesome that you're able to come back to that world and do another turtle and leave your stamp on that, because it's always is at Twisted Toonz. Okay, do you want this turtle or this? And the audience gets to respond and go, okay, no, we want the original. Okay,
right?
Yeah, that's awesome. How many projects do you work on at a time, or do you try to make it to where you're not overlapping too much? Because I would feel that's probably rough on your voice.
Well, to some extent, but I listen. I love to work. When it's particularly slow right now for me, so I'm getting a chance to take care of stuff at home and do interviews like this and do a lot of conventions. But no, I always love to work, and sometimes I might have 2 or 3, 4 shows going at the same time. Sometimes it's just one, but it's a very kind of a cyclical thing, and it kind of goes up and down for all of us. But no, I never have a problem working too much.
It's like, just give me more. Just give me
Give me
more.
more. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
At a certain point, do you ever find yourself like struggling or maybe trying to find a new voice to bring? Because I mean, with how much stuff you've done so many different types of voices. Are you trying to are you worried that at some point maybe you're gonna?
Yeah, I think that's a very real fear for most of us. There are new people coming on board all the time, and that's exactly the way it should be. I do sometimes worry that how many times all the times I've gone to the well, will it ever run dry? But part of my job is to keep myself updated on what's going on culturally, work on different characters, try to revisit old characters and tweak them and see if there's a new one in there. That happens. And as long as people are kind enough to give me the opportunity, I'm usually able to rise to the occasion. And again, it's being around all these other people who really inspire me to be creative. It's a full-time job, and a lot of it is just trying to cultivate new ways to breathe life into characters.
And you mentioned about inspiring. You referenced in I know that voice. I still have it pulled up over there. Mel Blanc, who of course the king, I guess you will, or was he a big inspiration for you to jump into voice acting, or was it just like he was someone you looked into after you started?
No, he was an inspiration from the beginning, but I didn't come out to LA to do just voice work. I came to LA many years ago, primarily as an on-camera actor and a singer, but the voice stuff presented itself in the mid 80s in the guise of G.I. Joe and Transformers. And it didn't take me long to say, oh my God, this is the gig. I want more of this. But Mel Blanc was an inspiration, I think, for many, many actors, just because of how prolific he was. And the characters were utterly believable. Bugs, Daffy, Tweety, Foghorn Leghorn, Elmer Fudd, Sylvester, over and over and over and over again. He was just supremely gifted and inspirational, just like Jack Nicholson or any other wonderful actor.
I mean, because they coined him as the man with 1,000 voices. Like he could just do anything. Like give him something, he'll do it.
Watch him. I mean, he was the original Barney Rubble on Flintstones. He played Mr. Slate on the Flintstones. He played Mr. Spacely on the Jetsons, and all the Warner Brothers stuff. You know, it's pretty difficult. He played that crazy little robot on Buck Rogers in the 21st Century in the 80s. He was remarkably prolific.
And one final thing I'll ask you, because I was curious about this, because you mentioned G.I. Joe in the 80s, and that was your kind of like, oh, I want to do more of this voiceover work. Over time, as you've been a part of the business, has there been any significant changes to recording or just that side of the business over time? Because, I mean, with all the projects and stuff, it just feels like maybe at a certain point, there's certain creative choices or certain things that have adapted and changed over time that maybe you think is for the better?
Well, my process hasn't changed. I still show up and do my gig, and the microphone is there, and I speak into it.
Yeah.
Obviously the recording business with respect to how performances are captured has changed a lot. Everything is digital. Nobody uses tape anymore. The ways in which takes and sessions are edited is all done digitally and sliding around different, voice prints.
Mm-hmm.
When I record at home, it's all done with a USB mic and my laptop, very easy. So all of that has really changed a lot. I don't know that. Well, there's also a lot more product, so the competition is much greater. But I don't know that anything has changed for me. Often there are types of shows that are primarily recorded, like Adult Swim and things that are really not for kids. And all that does is add more opportunity for actors and writers and producers and animators. So that's a good thing. And there's every other week, there's a brand new animated feature, it seems, whether it's from DreamWorks or Disney or Universal, independent producers, video games, huge amount of work in video games. So that gig, the voice acting gig, has really seen some significant changes.
Actually, you mentioned video games. So real quick, video games, I talked to Eric Loomis, who voiced Iron Man in a number of projects. Yeah. And he was mentioning the difference between video game work and a show, or a type of like a television show or a movie, where a video game, you're isolated, you're by yourself.
Usually, yeah.
Yeah. I'm guessing that isn't your preferred way to record, is by yourself.
I would much prefer to be with the other actors, but I utterly understand why that's the case with video games, because there's so much stuff that each actor has to do depending upon what the game player does. So it makes total sense logistically. And with COVID, most of us have been recording by ourselves in studio as well, simply to make sure that nobody gets sick. But I prefer always to be with the other actors. It just makes it way better. It makes it, in my view, that the show's that much more organic and a better experience for the audience if we're all together.
Yeah, because the chemistry back and forth, for
exactly.
Sure. Yeah. Yep. So, well, we'll be looking forward to you at different cons, hopefully more Twisted Toonz. And I did see that you have a Rob Paulsen coloring book. I saw that on your Instagram.
I do. My friend Tim Lawrence put together a coloring book with me and my love of automobiles, and it's available on Amazon. And I didn't realize that adult coloring books were a thing, but apparently they are. So yeah, you can check out the Rob Paulsen coloring book on Amazon. And I have another book, an autobiography called Voice Lessons.
Oh.
And people can check that out too. And the subtitle of which is How a Couple of Ninja Turtles, Pinky, and an Animaniacs Saved My Life. So give it a shot.
That's awesome. Thank you for speaking with me, and I hope we see you continue to do a lot of crazy stuff and more Twisted Toonz and shows and all that.
My pleasure, Jordan. Thank you so much again for your wonderful flexibility and being so kind and taking so much time with me. And thanks to all your fans out there for paying attention all these years. It makes us all very happy. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, sir.